Welcome to this virtual training developed by Peel Behavioral Services. My name is Jillian. I'm a board-certified behavior analyst working at Peel Behavioral Services. Today, I'll be discussing a variety of topics related to transitioning back to in-person activities and programming in the community and school. More importantly, we will provide behavioral strategies to set your child up for success during important transitions in the upcoming months. The coronavirus has impacted our day-to-day lives for the past 2 years, making life very different from what it used to be. As provincial restrictions begin to lift, schools, day programs, retail stores, community centers, and more are beginning to plan for reopening. Navigating this reintegration may bring some challenges, especially for those individuals who need additional support with transitions to new or different settings. Right now, it might feel like you have more questions than answers. You might be left thinking, what if this happens? What if that happens? Which can continue to fuel that uncertainty. As we think about the future, we cannot be sure of how things will turn out. However, the goal of this training is to provide general behavioral strategies that can be applied as we plan for upcoming changes, transitions, and the inevitable return to school. Today, we'll be discussing items such as planning for the future, talking about uncertainties, understanding behavior and teaching replacement behaviors. More specifically, we will be exploring strategies specific to the return to school, how to develop transition plans, specific questions to ask the school, how to create a daily schedule, social stories, teaching social skills, review of social distancing, hand washing, how to wear and or tolerate a face mask, how to start building these routines during the summer months, and finally, the main goal is to learn about the little changes that we can do that will improve or maintain those positive changes that have already been made. Accepting and tolerating uncertainty is a difficult thing to do and may be challenging or anxiety-provoking for those who find new environments, changes to rules or routines, and transitions more difficult. Going back to school and in the community may be quite different from what it looked like before, and there are many things we need to consider in order to set your child up for success. It's important to recognize that while we all want things to go back to the way they were and return to school, there may be many anxiety-provoking things that we need to consider, such as hygiene, remembering appropriate classroom behavior, a fear of getting sick, a fear of needles, new classroom rules around face masks, and questions such as, can you share or not at school anymore? Can you eat with your friends in the cafeteria? And more. You might start to see an increase in problem behaviors or the emergence of new behaviors due to new and ever-changing rules, situations, and expectations. As mediators or caregivers, you can start to talk about this with your children by acknowledging how they might be feeling. It's important to start these conversations and preparations early enough in order for your child to have time to process what is going to happen or potentially going to happen come the fall. Individuals benefit from predictable routines and being prepared with what to expect, which will make them less likely to refuse. When developing a plan, some examples of things you can say or ask your child may include, we might not have control of what happens at school, but we can control how we act. It's okay to feel scared or upset right now, but how can I help you? I know you're scared, hesitant about the new school year. Is it related to learning the new school rules and routines? How can I help support you and your fear of getting sick, properly wearing a face mask all day, and navigating social distancing and limited time spent with classmates or friends? Depending on your child's level of understanding, I recommend that you try to involve them in this planning. You can ask such questions: what makes you feel better? Do you need a structured routine, or do you need help remembering what to do in the morning to get ready for school? Should we schedule breaks, or how would you like to request a break or alone time if you need it? Which of these masks would you like to wear? Before we discuss behavioral strategies that can support successful transitions, it is essential that we first understand what behavior is and why we engage in the behaviors we do. With this knowledge, we can identify why problem behaviors occur and how to address them. Behavior is anything we can see or hear the other person do in a way that is observable and measurable. We can observe and record behaviors by documenting the frequency, which is how many times the problem behavior occurs. For example, if your child hits you or someone else 10 times that day, you can record that as a frequency. By duration, which aims to record how long a behavior lasts. This can include one behavior, such as the length of yelling, or the total time of a behavioral episode, which could include a number of behaviors such as swearing, yelling, hitting, property destruction, flopping repeatedly for 20 minutes, as an example. By the intensity or magnitude, you can measure the level of aggression or self-injurious behavior left by physical injuries such as scratches, bruises, hair loss, or destruction of property, which would indicate a high intensity compared to low intensity behaviors, which might look the same but do not leave the same amount of damage. To explain further, one individual might pull their own or someone else's hair, and you can see that hair pulled out in their hands, which would indicate high intensity, versus someone else who would engage in hair pulling, but only 1 to 2 or no strands are actually pulled out. Finally, there are times when you might be unable to observe the behavior. However, you can identify that a specific behavior occurred from a permanent product. An example of this could be recording the number of science questions answered on a homework sheet or a math sheet, and that will indicate that that behavior occurred, that answering of the question occurred. Feelings are difficult to measure and identify unless the individual can self-report accurately, meaning that they can verbally identify their feelings consistently, either through vocal or written reports, picture identification, sign language, or through an augmentative communication device. As mediators, we cannot record feelings or attempt to target the reduction of feelings. For example, to say that you'd like to decrease your child's anger, anxiety, temper tantrums, etc., is challenging from a behavioral perspective, as everyone experiences these feelings in a variety of different ways. I may express my anxiety by engaging in more physical exercise or eating more chocolate, whereas another individual's behaviors related to anxiety might present as going for a long drive, alone, pacing around the house, an increase in flapping hand behavior. An attempt should be made to define behaviors that correspond with feelings so they can be more easily measured. Rather than recording feeling sad, you can record the amount of times your child cries or how long they have cried that day. We've identified how to define and collect information on challenging behaviors, and when thinking about the return to school and community and problem behaviors arise, it's helpful to dig deeper and identify other areas of considerations, such as medical, environmental, and the function. Identified how to define and collect information on challenging behaviors, and when thinking about the return to school and community, in addition to problem behaviors that might arise, it's helpful to dig deeper and identify other areas for consideration, such as medical, environmental, and the function of the behavior. The first topic to address is medical. We must first ensure that there are no medical factors contributing to the behavior. For example, an underlying illness, allergies, dental problems, pain, headaches, constipation, sleep issues, seizures, effects of medication, neurological issues, mental health, just to name a few. I suggest reflecting on the past 2 weeks or month. Have you observed any of the following changes in behavior? Any changes in sleep patterns, eating, their activity level, increased bedwetting, or aggression or self-injurious behavior? The second thing to consider is the environment. What in the environment may be triggering the behavior? This could be a number of things, like the level of stimulation, transition, the difficulty of the task, not having enough opportunities for choice, observing the behaviors of others, their physical space, and changes to the schedule. You can ask different questions such as, does the problem behavior occur more often in certain environments? So does it happen more at school than at home, or more at the toy store versus the grocery store? And are there certain places or times, activities that are associated with less or more problem behaviors? So is there more problem behavior during brushing teeth compared to setting the table for dinner? Or is there more problem behavior with going to school than coming home from school? We've now talked about the importance of ruling out medical factors that may be contributing to the problem behavior and identifying environmental triggers. When thinking about going back to school or the community and the problem behaviors that you might face, we need to understand the why, or what we call the function of the behavior. Only then can we attempt to change that behavior. There are three main functions of behavior. The first is to gain access to something. This can include gaining access to someone's attention, a preferred activity, a tangible or edible item such as a favorite toy or treat. The second function is escape or avoid, and this can include escaping or avoiding a less preferred or difficult task, such as tying your shoes, different people in their environment. And the final function that we will talk about today is to gain or avoid sensory experiences. For example, one might cover their ears to avoid loud noises, or engaging in movements or actions that feel good to that individual, for example, twirling their hair for an extended period of time. It's important to note that whatever treatment or strategies you're using, the replacement behaviors in those strategies match the function of the behavior. One way to find patterns in behavior that can assist with understanding and identifying the functions is through ABC data collection. The A is for antecedents, which are the events that occur immediately before the behavior. Some examples include being delivered an instruction, a specific activity present, a person that's present, a setting, being told no, loud noises, independent work or play, or attention diverted. To identify antecedents, you can ask yourself the following questions. Where does the behavior happen? Who is present when the behavior is occurring? When or what time does the behavior happen? What activity or situation is happening prior to the behavior? What are mediators, peers, siblings doing while the behavior is occurring or prior to the behavior occurring? Additionally, it's important to identify and record setting events which do not occur immediately before the behavior, but will still make the behavior more likely to occur. This can include lack of sleep, not taking medication consistently, being hungry, temperature changes, so really hot in the summer or cold in the winter, the absence of a physical classroom for learning, divorce, birth of a sibling, or any other underlying medical or health concerns. The B is then for behavior. This is anything we can see or hear a person do that it can be measured, such as hitting, saying hello, yelling, flopping to the floor, or using a peck to request a toy. The C is the final piece of the ABC data collection, and it is the consequence, which are events that occur immediately after the behavior has occurred. A consequence might be social praise, a reprimand, attention provided, a toy taken away. The term consequence is not the same as punishment. Identifying them may be challenging, as the consequence can be as simple as looking at the individual after they've engaged in the target behavior. By providing as much information as you can when collecting ABC data, it will help to identify what factors are influencing the behavior. This is an example of an ABC data checklist. You can create your own, either with blank boxes or create a checklist like the one I've shown here. When creating and tracking behavioral data for your child, it's important to consider the unique antecedents, behaviors, and consequences that you're observing. However, the recording of ABC data will look something similar to this. In the first column, you will record the date and time you observed the behavior. You can include setting events where they were also in that first column as well. Then you look at the antecedents section and check off what the antecedent was. Then check off what exactly the behavior was that you observed, and then place a check mark in the consequence column. A typical ABC data sheet would not just have one row as shown here, it would have multiple rows with multiple entries each day. ABC data collection helps to uncover patterns that give us information about the function of behavior. The more data collected, the easier it is to uncover those patterns. Here are some examples of what you might see when collecting data related to the upcoming transition to school and community. At the end of this presentation, once we've reviewed behavioral strategies and how to teach replacement skills, we'll come back to these examples to see how we could apply those skills or the things we've learned throughout this training. It is important to note that we cannot hypothesize the function based on one record of ABC data collection. In the final column titled Hypothesized Function, I have included it as if we've collected more extensive data. So our first example here, the antecedent is the child is watching TV when the school bus arrives. The parent says, "Let's go, you'll miss the bus." Behavior we see is the child is crying, saying, "No, I will not go to school." The consequence is the child misses the school bus and continues to watch TV while his or her parent gets ready to drive the child to school. The hypothesized function in this example is access to television, escape from school or the school bus. The second example is the antecedent, the mediator says, "Get ready for school." The child just sits on the floor playing with his toys. The consequence is the mediator physically assists by dressing the child and brushing their hair and teeth. The function to this scenario could be access to toys, escape from morning routine. The third example is child is already on the school bus and arrives at school. Once arriving at school, they walk off the school bus and flop on the sidewalk. The consequence of this behavior is that the teacher and the TA provide attention by asking, "What's wrong? Don't you want to go to school?" and wait for the child to stand up and walk into school, which could take up to 30 minutes. The hypothesized function for this behavior is attention and escape or avoidance of school. The next scenario, the setting event is that the child has been going to bed late. So on the very first day of school, the antecedent is that the mom wakes the child up at 6:30 a.m. for that first day of school. The behavior of the child is yelling, refusal, hitting, swearing, and the consequence is that the mediator allows the child to sleep for an extra hour and go to school late. And the hypothesized function for this scenario would be, or could be, access to sleep. The final example we have here is the antecedent is the teacher tells the student to put their face mask on in school. The behavior is after 1 minute of wearing a face mask, the child or your child pulls off the face mask and throws it in the garbage. The consequence is that the teacher doesn't say anything and the mask remains in the garbage. And the hypothesized function could be escape from sensory experience, such as an itchy mask or an uncomfortable mask. Identifying the behavior and assessing it, it's time to come up with a plan. This plan should include the following 3 components. The first is antecedent strategies. The right antecedent can act as a trigger to produce the behavior you want to see. The second is replacement behaviors. Once you've understood or understand why the problem behavior is happening, you must then teach a replacement behavior that serves the same function for that person. And the final component is consequence strategies. A pleasant consequence following the occurrence of a replacement behavior can increase the probability that the replacement behavior will happen again, and this is called reinforcement. Is there any event that occurs before the behavior? Why are antecedent strategies important? Well, they can set the stage for success, promote the behaviors we want to see, and reduce the behaviors we don't want to see. The following antecedent strategies presented, when implemented, can help to promote a successful transition back to school and the community. It is important to talk to the school ahead of time and discuss a plan for their transition back. Figure out what your child understands about going back to school this year and reassure them that there will be help if they need it. Creating a transition plan and identifying transition goals will help to make this move successful. If possible, arrange time to meet the teacher and see the school and classroom ahead of this school year. If it's not possible, Use visuals of the school with photos such as the school bus, the entrance, where the individual will be entering, where the classroom is, pictures of staff they'll be interacting with. Ask the school if they'll provide these pictures or if any other supports are offered, such as will they provide a social story. Are there going to be mental health and grief services if teachers or known have deceased? And then updating all of the safety plans before going back to school. You can also try taking your child to school and going to the park area leading up to the start of school. When you are there, you can talk about the transition back to school, where the school bus will drop them off, and where they will enter the school, etc. You can ask the school what the rules are around eating, if there have been any changes due to COVID-19 restrictions, such as using a shared microwave. If your child typically uses a microwave for hot lunch and is no longer available, you can start to use a thermos at home so they can get used to it prior to the start of school. You can start to gradually implement an earlier bedtime and wake-up routine that aligns with the school day. So find out when the school day starts and you can gradually get them on schedule for school. Practice coping strategies if anxious at school, so review specific strategies that work with your child during anxiety-provoking situations, such as taking a deep breath, counting to 10, picturing their favorite character. Review the class schedule if in high school, have a tour to find out where the rooms are. Have an organized family schedule that can be posted so that everyone can be aware of what others in the household are doing. Create a behavior contract with your child that identifies the appropriate behaviors you want to see when going back to school, and identify reinforcers for successful transitions. For example, you may want to jointly identify what a successful first week or first day of school should look like, and increase your child's motivation to be successful by providing a previously identified reinforcer at the end of the day or week if it was successful. This could be something as simple as an outing to the park or a favorite snack that they don't eat often but really enjoy. You can make the first day back to school exciting by getting some supplies or a first day back outfit with a new backpack, maybe with one of their favorite characters on it, and you can start to practice packing and unpacking the backpack as well. When planning to speak to your child's school, here are some additional questions to consider asking. Make sure to record the information shared at this transition meeting as well. Rules for the classroom, such as sharing food, using the microwave, can they share toys, what does recess look like, what happens if they remove their mask in class, and when and where are they required to wear the mask. Provide any updates on how online learning worked for your child, any concerns that you had, how information will be shared with parents and students, what are their timeline plans, when can the transition activities start and be scheduled, such as when can they meet the teacher or come for a school visit. Is there any alternative learning plans if they are sent home from school sick or if a classmate is sick? Can they set up additional meetings and invite service coordinators or others in their life to support with this transition meeting if relevant? Discuss plans for a gradual reintegration and what that looks like. Maybe your child starts off in a classroom with 2 to 3 peers and gradually integrates into a larger group classroom setting. Busing information, what time will the bus arrive, where will the bus pick up and drop off be, etc. Related problem behaviors can occur for a number of reasons. The first is uncertainty about the upcoming transition. This may be the cause of problem behaviors when transitions is unpredictable. For example, the person is unsure that the transition is about to take place or when the transition will take place, and then all of a sudden they are being asked to transition. Some questions to assist in identifying if this is the cause of the transition-related behavior are: A, does a person engage in more behavior when there is no clear routine? B, does the person engage in behavior when things change? And C, does the person engage in the behavior when asked to do something unexpectedly? The second common cause of transition-related behaviors involves transitioning from a highly preferred activity and then not completing the transition and going back to the highly preferred activity. For example, you ask your child to brush their teeth when they are watching TV, a preferred activity. When they engage in problem behaviors, they are permitted to continue to watch TV. Some questions to assist in identifying if this is the cause of the transition-related behavior are: A, Does the person engage in the behavior when the preferred activity is removed or stopped? And B, does the behavior occur at the start of an unpreferred activity? Common cause of transition-related behaviors involves transitioning from a highly preferred activity to a non-preferred activity. This may cause the problem behavior as the person does not want to stop the activity they are currently doing to do something else that is not as enjoyable. For example, transitioning from playing video games to getting ready from school. A question to ask is, during which types of transition does the problem behavior occur? Preferred to another preferred, preferred to a less preferred, low preferred to another low preferred, or low preferred to a preferred. Behavior problems can happen because of the way the environment is set up. Changes to the setting or the environment can reduce or eliminate some problem behaviors. One of the first things to ask is if there are any safety concerns. This will be helpful to share with the school at a transition meeting as well. If there are safety concerns, you should try to have a plan in place to avoid or prevent potential harm. Some things to consider in a safety plan include what are the triggers to the problem behavior, what are the early warning signs to watch out for, what steps can be taken at the onset of early warning behavior signs, what steps should be taken if the individual does start to engage in problem behavior. Other examples of a safety plan strategies could include ensuring appropriate levels of supervision, lock up dangerous objects or items, and then again talk to the school and update if there needs to be a separate safety plan for school rather than home. Change the environment. If the problem behavior is happening because the person is trying to access something, so for example, an activity, preferred item, attention, food, these are some of the following things to change in the environment. So one example is to set up preferred activities or items so they can be easily accessed by the individual. So you can put bins with their favorite toys on shelves where they can reach it. If it's a food item that they are allowed to eat whenever they would like, again, have it somewhere where they can easily access it. This will reduce the person's motivation to engage in inappropriate behaviors to access these things. Provide plenty of attention for positive behaviors. Changing the environment if the problem behavior is happening to escape something. So for example, a disliked or difficult task, activities, or an environment. So things you can do to change the environment is to provide opportunity for breaks or rests, remove distractions, break tasks into smaller steps, use visuals or written instructions to describe each step that needs to be completed, reduce the quantity and the difficulty of work, give choices as opposed to the demands or directions, reward positive behaviors with specific praise, good job doing your work, and provide the school with any sensory issues that they can update in their classroom. So for example, if your child is sensitive to flickering lights, changing the environment to ensure that the light bulbs don't flicker. Changing the environment if there are sensory issues. I suggest considering what the person may be seeking or avoiding in their environment, reducing the need and the opportunity for them to engage in the problem behavior. For example, John likes to flip the light switch on and off. John can be given a toy that lights up to play with instead, or the visual sensory consequence can be removed by disconnecting that light switch. Creating consistent routines and daily schedules. There are a number of strategies that can be used to support daily consistent routines, such as getting ready for school, returning home from school, making dinner, etc. For example, you can use visuals, so either pictures or written words. You can have video models, and there's a variety of phone or tablet apps. Some individuals learn best when expectations are explained visually, while others do better with written material. We all use schedules, calendars, task lists, think of recipes, a grocery list, your work calendar. Problems can arise when individuals don't have support with following a consistent daily routine, and it may make this process even more difficult to get through. Using these tools can help to reduce the need for verbal prompts and reminders or physical assistance from parents or caregivers, and start to promote independence and time management. A visual schedule lets the individual know what will happen next, how long the activity is scheduled for, making the transition more predictable. Providing information about what will happen next or the sequence of steps may be helpful when transitioning from one activity to the next or one environment to the next. When creating a visual or activity schedule, you can use either words, pictures, or both. It could be in a binder or a visual that is taped to the wall, or either through a phone or tablet app. It is a set of pictures or words that cue the learner to engage in a sequence of activities. As you can see in this picture here, the first step when setting up the schedule is to select the activities. Then prepare the schedule in the sequence you would like the activities to be completed, identify the reinforcer or the reward for completing the schedule, and then prepare the environment. If your child can read, you can provide them a textual visual schedule such as a to-do list. There are a number of apps that you can download that will create a daily or visual schedule for you, like this one shown here. It's called the First Then Visual Schedule app. Using a visual schedule will also help with daily living skills that can support individuals throughout their lives now and in the future, and they can also help to decrease stereotypy as it facilitates the transition from one activity to another. It can help enhance acquisition of new skills and self-management. So for example, you can use a visual schedule for hand washing to teach that new skill.
This is an example of a visual schedule for a nighttime routine. Like I said before, you can make visual schedules a variety of ways. This could be a full day schedule, but for this example, it's just nighttime routine. And by providing choice, your child can also decide where they want to place the task. So for example, we put it as bath, wash face, brush hair, brush teeth. However, maybe they would like to brush their teeth before brushing hair today, and that's okay, we can switch it around. So how this works is your child will see that the first step of the task is going for a bath. So once bath is all done, you remove that visual and it prompts you or shows you that what is the next step is to wash face. So once washing face is all done, you remove that icon, and now you have 2 steps left before your reward, which would have been predetermined before starting the schedule. And in this case, it's watching a movie. So after washing face, now it's time to brush our teeth. After teeth are brushed, we can remove that icon. And the last thing to do before we're able to gain access to a movie is brush hair. So when brushing hair is all done, now it's time for our reward, which is movie. And that can be a set time that you've determined. This can change depending on the day, depending on your child. It's just important that we provide choice within the schedule. They're still getting everything done for their nighttime routine, but it's allowing choice. And by removing those visuals, or if you want to use a schedule that's just a picture with check marks, you can see what's left and what's coming next. If matching pictures to visuals or reading is difficult for your child, another way to create a visual schedule is by using actual physical objects. So I'll give you an example today of a morning routine. You can make this a lot bigger because there's a lot of pieces that go into the morning routine, but today I'll just show you. So first bin is jeans, second bin is t-shirt, and third bin is toothbrush. So then your child can see all the physical objects and know the order in which to get ready for his morning. So after he or she puts his jeans on, the bin is all done. And now it's time for a t-shirt, and t-shirt bin is all done. And now he or she knows that the next step in the morning schedule is to brush teeth. So we brush our teeth, and the brushing teeth bin is all done.
Activity schedules for adults can include steps needed for returning to work, using a weekly day planner to indicate scheduled shifts as they might not occur at the same time every day. It might be helpful to have a calendar with all of your family's tasks put in it. This will be helpful to show your children what appointments or events are scheduled throughout the week. A benefit of this is that for those individuals who repeatedly ask when specific events are occurring, they can just refer to the calendar. When thinking about the return to school and creating consistent routines, you can start now by scheduling lunch, free time, wake up, and bedtime at the same time each day, even on the weekends. This will make sure the return to school where the time is more structured easier. Another antecedent strategy that can assist with following through with the transition and creating consistent routines is first then. Typically it is used with the first being a non-preferred activity, followed by a highly preferred activity. You can start to implement these strategies throughout the summer. To get started with this strategy, try using two preferred activities first. For example, first eat your cookie, which is a highly preferred item, then play your video game, another highly preferred activity. Start to fade in moderately preferred activities. So for example, you could say first have your granola bar, or first do your puzzle, which are moderately preferred, then the highly preferred activity, play video games or go outside. Once this is successful, fade to non-preferred activities, followed by the highest preferred activities. So for example, first brush your teeth, then you can play outside. Ensure highly preferred is provided immediately following the completion of the non-preferred activity. Ensure activity is available and accessible to avoid making false promises. Additional antecedent strategies include giving advanced warnings. Transitions are common triggers for problem behavior. By providing advanced warnings, it lets the person know that there is a change that's about to happen. It might be helpful to set a visual timer, a countdown, an alarm clock, a color countdown light. There are some apps that you can download that can help provide advanced warnings such as Timer for Kids, Visual Task Countdown, Time Timer, or Visual Countdown Timer, to name a few. It is essential that you always follow through once the advanced warning is given to avoid getting mixed messages and provide predictability. There are ways to teach the concept of a visual timer and time that is fun. For example, you can microwave a bag of popcorn, and when the time gets to 0, you know then time is up and you can eat your popcorn. When individuals are given choices, they are often more likely to follow through with an instruction. Giving individuals choices allows them to have some power and control and a sense of autonomy rather than being told what they can or can't do. For example, you could say, it's time to do your work. Do you want to do your reading or your math sheets first? They're still doing the work that's required, but you've given them some choice. Another example is, you have to wear your face mask to school. Did you want to wear the red one or the blue one today? You can even use this with calm down strategies. You can see that you're getting a little anxious. Do you want to do deep breathing or count to 10? This is an example here of a choice board for recess. It can be used if your child isn't sure what to do outside when they go back to school, and it can be helpful to let them know what choices are available and show them what is not available. Other examples of where you could use choice boards include choosing an activity while waiting for the bus, your choice of snack when you return home from school, choice board of highly preferred items that can be selected after completing the daily schedule. You can make them easily yourself, either with removable pictures and Velcro, or just a sheet of paper with the pictures printed on it, and they can point or just vocally tell you what they would like. You can ask the school as well if they use choice boards, and use the same type of choice board at home for consistency. Here are some strategies to assist with transitioning from highly preferred activities to non-preferred activities. If your child has a difficult time transitioning from highly preferred activities such as video games to non-preferred activities such as getting ready for school, you can try to introduce a transition activity to make the transition less aversive. Consider an activity that is moderately preferred, that they are okay to transition to from video games such as coloring or a puzzle. Then when it's time to get ready for school, the transition from moderately preferred activity to the non-preferred activity will not be as aversive. If your child gets a lot of attention and access to preferred activities at home, however on the school bus or at school they don't, which you believe is causing problem behaviors, discuss your thoughts with the school and see if there is any additional supports that can be provided either on the way to school or in the classroom. If the school bus ride is difficult, you could try speaking to the teacher to see if they could provide a reward to your child when they arrive at school if their transition was smooth without any problem behaviors. Another antecedent strategy is communicating effectively. This can include empathic listening, which will be useful when talking to your children about the return to school and their concerns. We'll go through 5 steps. So the first one is give your child your undivided attention. Remove distractions and focus all of your attention on your child. This includes your nonverbal behavior too. Avoid fidgeting in your seat, playing on your phone, or with pens or paper clips. You should make eye contact and nod your head to let your child know that you are listening. 2. Be non-judgmental. For example, if your child comes to talk to you about a failing grade, giving a lecture only on the need to study more will not help. You can let your child know that you are there to help. There are other ways that our communication might be judgmental. For example, your child is crying because they got a stain on their first day of school outfit. By saying something like, "It's not a big deal, just wear something else," it is judgmental of the seriousness of the behavior, because at that moment it is serious and important to your child. 3. Focus on feelings, not only the facts. You can ask your child how they're feeling about what is happening. Some kids and some individuals are able to explain their feelings well, while others find it difficult. To identify how they're feeling, you need to really be listening to what they're saying. 4. Allow time after for a break or silence. Before you speak, you should allow your child time to think and reflect on what they have said. Oftentimes, they will share more information. 5. Clarify the message by restating. Here you will put what your child said in your own words. For example, "I hear that you were afraid to tell me that you got a C on your math test. You look really upset that you got that grade, aren't you?" This is a helpful tool in case you have misunderstood what they have said. By strengthening your trust and rapport with your child, they will be more likely to come talk to you in the future. Another way to communicate effectively is by delivering instructions successfully. Some tips in order to do this is to eliminate distractions and establish eye contact. Give short, clear, and positive instructions. For example, "Please clean up your toys." Make instructions simple by using as few words as possible and by giving one request at a time. You want to tell the individual what you want them to do versus what you don't want to do. So say, "Hands down, please," instead of saying, "Stop hitting." Here are some additional tips to communicating effectively. Give instructions only once and wait 10 to 60 seconds to allow the person to process the information presented. Prompt the person if they do not begin that task independently. You can use visuals, you can gesture by pointing to the task, or physically helping the person to get started. When providing a prompt, try to give a minimal assistance to encourage the individual's independence. If necessary, provide full physical, example hand-over-hand assistance to complete the tasks. Praise immediately when the person starts the task and praise again when the task is complete. Be specific about what behavior you are praising. "Nice work staying quiet, Michael," is an example. Using consequences effectively. A consequence that makes a behavior occur more frequently or for a longer period of time or with greater intensity is a reinforcer. One that makes a behavior occur less frequently or for a shorter duration or with less intensity is a punishment or a punisher. Consequence strategies can make a problem behavior ineffective and promote the use of more appropriate replacement behaviors. Reinforcement is a consequence that will increase the likelihood that the behavior will happen again in the future. If you notice that a behavior is occurring frequently, then there must be a rewarding consequence that is following and maintaining that behavior. Sometimes we consider the things that we do or consequences as being negative, and you would think that it might be a punishment. However, it might be reinforcing to the individual. So for example, yelling, reprimanding, giving a timeout. If the behavior is still increasing, then that reprimand, that timeout was not working as a punisher. If we want to change behavior, we need to change how we react when a behavior occurs. Once we've changed our reaction, we need to see if the problem behavior we are working on starts to increase or decrease as a result. And we can do this with that data collection system that was mentioned earlier, ABC data collection, to see if behaviors are starting to decrease. A token system is a type of reinforcement program in which tokens are given for performing a specific behavior. The types of tokens used are unlimited, but can include check marks, stickers, stamps, poker chips, marbles. Backup reinforcers are awarded once the set amount of tokens have been earned. Backup reinforcers are predetermined rewards that a person may choose from. For example, toys, candy, access to a preferred activity. Other examples may be that you decide to set up a token system where you give your child a sticker on their calendar for every day they went to school. Once they get 5 stickers for 5 days, they would earn their backup reinforcer of their choice, such as a toy, a snack, or a favorite outing. A token system should focus on positive behaviors, listening, using your words, following rules, completing homework. The token system can be faded slowly after the program has been implemented and is successful. I recommend trying a token system with your child this summer before they go back to school and work on reinforcing those positive behaviors. Here are the steps for setting up a token system. So first, you want to select the token that will be used. So do you want to use check marks? Do you want to use stickers or poker chips? Make that decision, and you can make that decision with your child too. That way you're offering choice. The second thing is to choose the positive behavior you want to increase or the rules that need to be followed. So this could be getting up in the morning and following their morning routine. 3, plan how to respond when the person does not earn their tokens. What will you say? How will you indicate that that token was not earned? 4, choose the backup reinforcers to be earned. For example, free time, going to the movies, swimming outside, playing video games. 5, choose how many tokens must be earned in order to receive the backup reinforcer. And with this, I recommend starting out with a small amount of tokens and then gradually increasing. That way the child gets to learn the use of the token system, and then as he or she is successful, you can gradually increase the number of tokens they need to earn in order to gain that reinforcer. And the last thing is just test and change the program if needed. If you're finding it's not working, maybe you've been giving too many tokens or not enough tokens, and just troubleshoot. Now I'd like to review the difference between a reinforcer or reward versus bribery. So the difference between rewards and bribery comes down to timing. Rewards are earned for engaging in positive behaviors, whereas bribes are offered to avoid or stop a negative behavior. Rewarding the positive behavior makes it more likely the behavior will occur again in the future. If you wait until your child is engaging in the negative behavior, for example, you're at the park and your kids start to fight, and you say, if you calm down or if you stop fighting, we'll go to McDonald's after. This is bribery, and the negative behavior is dictating that reward versus rewarding positive behaviors. So it's important when using reinforcement, we're making that distinction between what is a reward and what is bribery. Other ways to use consequences effectively is to first be consistent. When teaching a new skill or behavior, try to reinforce every correct response. When the new behavior is occurring regularly, reinforcement can be slowly faded. You want to be immediate. It's important to reinforce the individual right after that positive behavior has occurred. Delays of reinforcement weaken their ability to work as a reinforcer. You need to choose effective reinforcers. Reinforcement needs to be motivating to the individual. When choosing reinforcers, try to include the individual in the process. So ask them, what do they want to do? Do they need your attention? What are they asking for? Avoid using reinforcers that the individual has free access to. For example, if the student has free access to the computer, then it will not be an effective reinforcer to use for a programming or for rewarding good behavior if they have it all day long. And the last is to vary the reinforcers. So too much of anything can be boring, even effective reinforcers. Therefore, ensure that there is a variety of reinforcers that are being selected. Now we're going to talk about teaching new skills. So there's a variety of ways that we can teach replacement skills and behaviors, and we'll go through the following today throughout the rest of this presentation and how to incorporate these teaching methods into the transition back to school. So we'll talk about task analysis, modeling, role play, shaping. The first is to do a task analysis, and what this is that you've broken the task into smaller steps, like this picture here shows for making lemonade or iced tea. So it's taking that one task and breaking it into all of its tiny components so that you can easily teach each of those small pieces. They can be visually represented by a picture or having it written out, so kind of like following a recipe in a cookbook, or in this case it's pictures on how to make that iced tea. Each step in a task analysis is performed in the same order every single time. By doing it that way, the learner learns the correct sequence of those steps so that they can effectively complete that skill. In the video I'm attaching next, I'm going to go through how to develop those discrete step-by-step behaviors.
One easy way to set up a task analysis is to do the steps yourself. It's hard to know what each component is for certain activities such as hand washing, tying shoes. So today I'll show you myself tying shoes, and then we'll break down the steps so that you can easily write out a task analysis. So here's our shoe today. So our first step is to pick up both laces. Step one. We're going to cross the laces. Then we're going to put the underneath lace in a loop, wrap the top lace around, make another loop. Now we're going to pull that through and tie. So that way when we're doing our task analysis, we can have concrete steps when we're teaching those skills.
Many individuals are visual learners, and therefore modeling can be an effective tool to teach new behaviors or skills. You can model the appropriate behavior or the behavior you're trying to teach in person or through a video. The next slide is a video model of hand washing. To make your own video models at home, you can create a task analysis, like I explained in the slide above, of the steps required to complete that task, such as shoe tying, washing hands, brushing teeth. Additional ways to teach hand washing could be through the use of a visual schedule that's taped to the mirror in conjunction with modeling from a parent. So they're watching the parent follow the steps of the visual schedule, and then they're going to follow the steps of the visual schedule after watching their parents. One of the biggest challenges some individuals are facing is the requirement to wear a mask at school all day long and in public. This might be challenging for those who have spent their days at home for the past year doing online remote learning and haven't had to go into a classroom or wear a face mask all day long. Modeling is a great way to teach proper taking on and off the mask, but also just seeing other people wearing masks is modeling behavior. Some additional tips to ensure your child will wear their face mask while at school is to first start talking about face masks. You can do this by having a conversation with your child or through social stories or different videos from the internet. There's a ton of videos right now out about wearing face masks, the importance of face masks that you can find on the YouTube and watch those with your children too. You can talk about the reasons why it's important to wear a face mask. So for example, masks are important because they keep us healthy and safe and stop the spread of COVID-19. You can personalize your mask or find one with a favorite character or favorite color that makes wearing the face mask more motivating. You can start to practice wearing a face mask for longer periods each day to ensure that by the time school starts, they can tolerate wearing their mask the entire day. So for example, they're at home and you start off by wearing the mask for 20 minutes and you gradually start increasing and increasing as that they're successfully wearing that mask. You can also use visuals such as the one here to provide information on how to wear a face mask or to show what to do and what to not do when wearing a face mask. When talking to your kids about social distancing or how to practice social distancing, you can do so in a variety of ways. Like with wearing a face mask, you can create a social story or a visual to explain how to socially distance and its importance. It might be challenging for children to know how far to distance, and they may gradually get closer and closer to their peers while playing without realizing, or that they aren't allowed to share their toys with friends at recess anymore. Remember to praise your child when you see that they are socially distancing while in public and out in the community. One way to teach the concept of the distance is to create some fun games at home. So you could cut a piece of rope that's 6 feet long. You can hold one end and your child can walk away until the rope is tight, indicating that you are 6 feet apart. You can even practice this in the community to bring this to their awareness. There are lots of stickers and markings on the ground at stores to indicate what is 6 feet apart. You can, your child can stand on one dot, you can stand on the other, or jump from one dot to the other to really understand that distance. At home, you can play a green, yellow, red game where you place toys throughout a room, and when your child is further than 6 feet away, you can call out green. As they approach and get towards that 6 foot mark, you can yellow or call out yellow. And if they get within that 6 foot marking, you can call out red. Another way to teach new skills that can be helpful with the transition back to school is shaping. Shaping means that the learner is rewarded for increasing success. An example of this is the following. If the behavior you want to teach is waiting for the bus to come in the morning, and the target goal is to wait for 5 minutes, you would provide reinforcement when the person is able to wait for 1 minute, and once that was successful, then you would move to 2 minutes, 3, etc., until you reach your end goal of waiting for 5 minutes. So you've done this gradually. You can also use this strategy with a nighttime routine. If you're creating a consistent schedule and would like your child to go to bed earlier for the start of school, start by gradually increasing the amount of time they're sleeping. If they're already going to bed at 11 and your end goal is that by school you want them to be in bed at 9, start by putting them to bed at 10:30. And when they're successfully going to bed at 10:30, then 10 p.m. Once they're successful at 10 p.m., you move to 9:30 and then the final end goal of 9 p.m. And that's called shaping. Modeling and role play to teach social skills. So you can use both of those to teach social skills. And as mentioned previously, some individuals are visual learners, and therefore modeling can be a really effective tool to teach a new skill or to teach those social skills. Role play is another effective strategy, and it involves practicing a skill that the person has difficulty with. So for example, starting a conversation with a new peer at school in a safe and non-threatening environment. They can be helpful when teaching individuals how to turn take, how to solve a disagreement, answer the phone. Scripts are also helpful tools that can support role play, and you can create one like the example shown here. When practicing social skills at home with your child, it would be beneficial to get the whole family involved, especially if they have siblings. You can prompt both siblings to go through a social skills script or a conversation script, and I'll provide how to do that in the next slide. You can also have one of your children complete a task and model the correct way to do it and have your other child follow along. So for example, one child answers the phone and then the other child who's learning that skill models the behavior of their sibling. Make sure to provide praise to both children for completing their schedule. Transitioning successfully or engaging in role play. Here's an example of a script you can use with your children. The first person, they're prompted to say, "How are you today?" And then the next individual says, "I'm doing good. How are you?" Then the next kind of thing to ask to kind of script for role playing conversation could be, "What's your favorite food?" Fill in the blanks as you want with the conversation. And then the next person would say, "My favorite food is pizza. What about you?" And then you can just make up different scripts for back and forth conversation. Preparing your child for needles and ultimately the COVID-19 vaccine. So one of the ways to start preparing your child is to talk to them about the vaccine and what to expect. You can do this by either having a conversation or through a social story or finding a video online that also goes through what to expect and what will happen. I'll go through how to create your own social story in the next slide. The other thing to consider is a fear of needles. And a lot of individuals do have a fear of needles, so you can start to look at desensitization. So showing them pictures of needles, videos of needles, people getting needles, maybe they watch you get the COVID vaccine so that they become more familiar with needles, and that when it's their turn to get the vaccine, it'll make it much more easier for them. So to create your own social story, you have to think about what it is that you are trying to teach. So for example, it could be going to school or going on a vacation. You can take your own pictures and add them to the story, or find templates online that go through what to expect, what they might see while they're there, and how long they'll be there. Any information you can put in the story and just personalize it. It's sometimes helpful to have pictures of your own children in those stories too. So let's look back at the examples that we addressed earlier on in the presentation. We've reviewed different behavioral strategies, how to teach replacement behaviors, different types of replacement behaviors, and we're going to look at these examples now and see what we could do differently if now that we have all this knowledge. So the first example is that the child is watching TV, which we can probably assume is highly preferred, and the school bus arrives, and all of a sudden your parent says, "Let's go, school bus is here, you have to go now." So thinking back to some of the strategies, antecedent strategies, so there's advanced warning. So you could set a timer and say the school bus is coming at 8 o'clock. At 7:50, you let them know either with a sound timer or a countdown clock that your child will know that when that timer is up, that means TV's all done, and then I have to get on the school bus. Also practicing transitioning from preferred to non-preferred activities, and we've gone through that, how to go work on that with your child too is really helpful when the start of school comes and you're transitioning from highly preferred TV watching to non-preferred getting on the school bus. The next example is that the mediator says, "Get ready for school," and the child just sits on the floor playing with toys. Maybe the child doesn't know, or your child doesn't know how to get ready for school. So one way that we discussed to work on that is to have a visual schedule, have everything laid out either in baskets if it's too complex to look at a schedule, or on an iPad. There's multiple ways that we can make that getting ready for school routine, and helping them through that and practicing that in the summer before school starts. So that way when school does come, you say, "Get ready for school," the visual schedule is in place, and it's easier for them to get ready. The next section is, or the next example is that after the school bus, they get off the school bus and they flop on the ground. So having conversations with the teachers and talking to them about this could possibly be attention seeking, and providing minimal attention while prompting them to get up and in the school, and not giving all those verbal attention things such as what's wrong, do you not want to go to school, because that's now delaying the time that it takes for that child to get into school. The next section or example here is with the setting event of they're typically going to bed late, and now all of a sudden it's time for school and you have to get up early. So if you think back to the shaping example, we want to start getting, and even in the daily routines, we want to have those schedules consistent and figured out prior to school. So if wake up time is 6:30, start in the summer, gradually making bedtime a little bit earlier and wake up time a little bit earlier. That way at the start of school, that makes it a lot easier. And the last example about putting on the face masks. So we talked about different ways to make a face mask more enjoyable to wear. So having a favorite color, character, letting them choose what face mask they want to wear, and gradually having them tolerate it over the summer. So first they wear it for 20 minutes, 30, 40, 50. That way they're used to wearing that face mask when it comes to school time. Here's a list of some websites that you can look to for further resources. Thank you for joining today. I hope you're feeling more prepared for the transition back to school.